Welcome back to the Sunday Talk Show here on the Arise News Channel. Now, finally, with me, I still have Professor Bola Akintenwa, Director General, Bolitech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Well, let's go straight to it. We've had 4 guests trying to look at the major issues of the week. Our first guest, Mr. Peter Obi, presidential candidate of the Labour Party. We also had Mr. Victor Aluko, Director of Voter Education with INEC. We also had Dr. Nnameka Obiariri, who spoke about all this Naira redesign process, the scarcity of the new notes and the implications. And finally, we had Achike Chude, who commented on Nigeria's achievements with the Transparency International Corruption Index. At least, Yemi, don't look like that. It's on progress, you know. We moved up 4 points, you know. Anyway, let me start with you. Maybe you want to start with the corruption index.
Actually, no, we don't have much time, so I'll leave that one. I mean, I don't think anybody needs a deep explanation. I'm particularly concerned about INEC and the issue of voters' cards. Mr. Aluko said, and he kept repeating it, that the people who did not get their cards were people who registered twice. INEC did a very good thing because it is against the law to have registered twice, and you can be jailed for up to 1 year and fined maybe 100,000 naira if you are found to have registered twice. But they graciously did not choose to prosecute anybody, but what they decided to do was delete your second registration. A lot of people complained and said, well, they should have kept the second one since it's the most current. But their point was, if we kept the second one, we would have to print a card for you, which would have a cost implication. So let's delete your second registration, keep your first one, since we've already printed a card for you. Very good. But it is inaccurate of Mr. Aluko to insist that only people who double registered did INEC not print cards for. Enough is Enough has a complaints portal that we've managed since March of last year that started with the CVR process, people complaining, and then with the PVC collection process. We have processed almost 1,000 complaints from all across the country. Lagos, Rivers, Abuja, Benue, Kaduna. And the issues are not about that I registered twice because they are in INEC's database for the location where they are going to pick up their cards. Because if you are double registered, you will not be able to find it in your second place. You will find yourself in INEC's database, but in the first place that you registered. And what has INEC staff done? They will tell you card not found. They will give you a form to escalate it so that INEC can print. A friend of mine still went in this Lagos, in Etiosa, went to pick up her card yesterday. They told her it wasn't ready, she should come back today. I don't know what magic they were expecting to happen. And she went back today, and of course, her card is not ready. She was promised that they will call her, but PVC collection ends today.
5 p.m.
Exactly. And secondly, I know several places where citizens have tried to volunteer to help. She said she also helped, like, look, you have a whole box of cards. Let me go through it myself. Let me help you sort it. I might be able to find my card. They would say no. So if INEC staff are truly overwhelmed, which I understand, but if you're not allowing people to help sort the cards, allowing them to help find their cards, then what? So it ends today. The law says we require a voter's card. You have promised to give everybody their PVC, and it is not true that it's only people who registered twice that cards were not printed for. There are many other people, thousands, I would say easily, that INEC did not print cards, maybe tens of thousands. Obviously, we're dealing with people who have access to our web portal. Easily maybe tens of thousands that INEC did not print cards for. So when it ends at 5 p.m. today, how are those people expected to vote in 3 weeks? You can't say they can't vote. And too bad cannot be an answer. And I think really both candidates who have, who have campaigned to citizens and citizens who have worked hard to go to INEC's office, not once, not twice, not 3 times. We posted a story of a young man who picked up his card on his 7th try. I mean, that takes time, that takes money, that takes insistence to be able to get your card. So I think INEC really needs to answer, and both National Assembly, candidates, political parties need to put INEC's, and citizens really need to put INEC's feet to the fire on what they're going to do about cards that people were not able to pick up today. And lastly, my point, don't worry, I won't talk about the other 2 issues. Point about the Naira design. I like what Mr. Obiariri said around 500 billion naira was in circulation. We now have supposedly 300 billion. That technically, yes, that might be a bit uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be at the level of chaos that we see now. And so if El-Rufai came out, Malam El-Rufai came out that said a governor colleague of his got 500 million naira of new notes. We've seen footage of people who are spraying new notes at parties. So if banks, and this is not low-level operation staff that we've been seeing with ICPC and EFCC, if bank MDs, and they should really be called to order, CBN should be able to say, this is how much we gave to these banks, and then these banks should be able to account for how they've spent it. If that is not done, then we're just putting Nigerians in like hardship for no reason. But I do also agree with Mr. Obiareri that it's very instructive that it's politicians of the APC that now decide that they care about Nigerians enough to go and see Mr. President on new Nigeria notes. Kidnapping, no state of emergency. Out of school children, no state of emergency. Fuel scarcity, 5 months. That the same government keeps claiming it has enough fuel, there should be no scarcity, we have sufficiency. Nobody has gone to Mr. President to say, if NNPC is saying we have enough, yet our people are spending hours in traffic to buy fuel, what is happening? Well, no, we've designed new Naira notes. And not to say that there's no hardship, but it's a very clear sort of misplaced priorities. And the governor of the central bank really needs to do better in explaining what is going on with these things. And I like your question about the 100 Naira notes. Maybe if we're spending 100 Naira, 50 Naira, we shall spend money. So the other two topics I'll leave to the professors to talk about.
Professor Aworawo.
Thank you very much. I would begin with Mr. Peter Obi's submissions. As usual, it was exciting, it was vibrant, and it was accurate in many of the statistics he gave. I'm particularly impressed by his ability to compare countries that are supposed to be on the same level with Nigeria, or were on the same level with Nigeria a couple of years ago, where they are now, where we are now. Total export of Nigeria, less than $30 billion. Vietnam, 10 times as much, $300 billion. So I'm fascinated by all that. And the long and short is that, just as I've always said, that we need to be more productive. We need to create wealth more. We are not creating wealth more to go around, which is why when there's a small thing, you have 1 million people scrabbling to get it. And the way to do that is to solve all these infrastructure issues, this fuel subsidy crisis, and then focus on how to develop agriculture. The industrial sector, which is almost comatose, has to be developed. He also was instructed by saying that a great deal, almost everything that Vietnam exports is, goods that are produced in Vietnam exported elsewhere. If Vietnam can do that, the giant of Africa can do that. So I agree with him in all of those issues, of course, including his view regarding the fuel subsidy thing and how to tackle it. But I do disagree with him on one major issue. When you asked him that, what did he think about defection? And he said, well, that won't bother him. What bothers him is how to come together to solve Nigeria's problem. He has to win the election to be able to solve Nigeria's problem. And people are defecting. How does he get to solve Nigeria's problem? He should be bothered about that. And, our analysis shows that Labour Party will struggle in the north. So the comment of El-Rufai should actually be a comment to galvanize him, to ginger him. What can we do to expand, our followership and those who vote for us, especially in the north? Otherwise, you talk all the grammar, you don't win the election, you go home. You won't have the opportunity to implement all those beautiful policies you have. For the Naira, of course, I want to even say government should be listening to us talking and follow what we say. What is happening now? We predicted it a couple of weeks ago that it will happen. That the way the CBN has gone about implementing this policy of resigning Naira and all that will lead to chaos. And that is what is happening now. We are confronted with the reality. And to begin, there are two things. First, CBN has not made available enough notes to go around. That is very clear from what has happened. And then two, the attitude of our people, the banks who got the money and then have kept them for the people that the CBN didn't want to get the money. Which is where I disagree with Dr. Namika that sacrifice of 3 weeks. He even contradicted himself. If you are saying that politicians have got all the money, I say we should sacrifice. What are we sacrificing for? The people who don't want to get the money, we don't want to have the money so as not to block, use it for a vote buying. They already have it. So what are we sacrificing for if we are sacrificing? So what the CBN should do, I also agree with him on that. I agree with him on that. Is that the CBN needs to get the law enforcement agencies, seek their help, and then see how all of these things can be tidied up, make more notes available so that people will not go through this suffering. It's suggestion that we let us endure for another 3 weeks, it won't kill us. What are we enduring for? The politicians that were not supposed to get the notes, they already have it.
And people are dying.
And people are dying. So the CBN needs to, wake up, adopt this strategy, get more security agencies to be involved. They have caught some already, and those ones are, we hope they will be prosecuted. And then, they should also make more notes, available so that the suffering of Nigerians, will not persist. Let me speak finally on the cards. What the guest said even contradicts what the REC of Lagos said. The REC of Lagos said there are many cards that have not been collected, which means it is not the true. There is only those who have registered before, who re-registered, who are unable to pick up their cards. Many cards are there that have not been collected, and it comes to the point.
That's not the issue, though. The issue are people who don't have cards. That's
Yes.
the issue. So the cards that people are not collecting is neither here nor there. If you don't go and pick up your card, that's your choice in a sense.
But there are people who have been looking for their cards who can't get their cards.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Do you know how I got my card?
How?
One of my students found this somewhere and called me and said, Prof, I saw your card here.
Okay.
I've been going all over the place to look for the card, I can't find it. So there are people who are genuinely going to look for their cards who can find it.
Oh, okay.
And the cards are there. And the Lagos REC, admitted that.
Okay.
So the INEC too needs to do better because the election will be closed. And these cards are not collected may determine who becomes Nigeria's president and who does not.
Okay, let's take Professor Akinterwa in the fervent expectation that we'll be able to take one final topic. Professor Akinterwa.
Let me begin where Professor Aworawo stopped. He raised the issue of defection, which Peter Obi told us is not really a big deal. Professor Aworawo has argued that, defection will be a critical issue, especially in light of the position of Rufai, and that whatever he may want to do, whatever he has as an agenda, can only be feasible, doable if he's elected. Theoretically, I will agree with him. But I will remind my brother that here in Nigeria we have a political saying that we have had the best, president. The
best president
we never had. An Obi eventually can fall into that particular category. I share your analytical sentiments on Peter Obi to begin with. He attracted my attention on 4 critical points. The first one is his attitudinal disposition to whatever question, whatever anybody says. For instance, reportedly, Bola Ahmed Tinubu might have referred to him, if he's the one he was referring to, that, look, you Peter, you are stingy. Peter, in the Bible, denied Jesus Christ 3 times. Now, his response, cool, calm, and collected. He said, look, this same Peter that biblically told us, denied Jesus Christ, still remains the same Peter on whom God gave the whole responsibility of the church. Peter is the head of the church. And he's now saying, look, this same Peter that is seen to be stingy, that is not likely to, or is likely to deny Nigeria, is now saying, look, you give me this same Nigeria to be head of the church. Nigeria is now synonymous with the church. And you will see how it's going to perform new miracles. So this is very significant, and it appears to me that the type of interballistic missiles targeted at Peter Obi are always strengthening him, and is now coming us with some strategic explanations. The second point, you see, related to it, El-Rufai, Ruben Abati challenged him to say, you cannot get more than 2% here, 2% there. I said, yes, fine. I will now work specifically on that. I will improve on that. Now, when you look at that, in terms of analysis, he admitted already that it may be true. He didn't say El-Rufai is wrong. And that's a question of perception anyway, and I will come to that one. Now, you will see that he admitted, and he's saying he's going to work towards that. Thirdly, he said he's an Igbo man, he's a Southeasterner, but when he is elected, this issue of national disintegration, disunity, will belong to the garbage of history. He's not saying that in 5 years they will see that everybody will now be interested in becoming a new Nigerian. So in this case, he is simply saying that at the end of the day, don't look at my ethnic origin as to what he's going to do. And finally, you know, in terms of character, he said this election should be based on character. And that reminded me of what a nationalist, Ohewere, who said that, look, Nigeria, in the past, we used to emphasize character in our individual building, nation building. But nowadays, it is money that we are looking for. And Christopher Kolade identified 3 criteria that we need for Nigeria to have a new look. He talked about values, standard, and discipline. So if we now combine these 3 with, character, I think the future will be bright. Finally, let me look at the issue of Transparency International. Dr. Abati drew attention to the fact that people were saying it's not about statistical, it's not about serious analysis. Please, I am a research fellow. I do not know of any meaningful, any constructive analysis that does not begin with perception. You first of all perceive, you look at it, you look at the situation, and then you now go back to verify. So it's from hypothesis to justification. So let's leave that one since we don't have time on this matter.
Okay, we'll take our final subject. U.S. military fighter jets have shot down the suspected Chinese surveillance balloon over the Atlantic Ocean off the eastern seaboard of the United States. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has confirmed. The operation ended a remarkable public drama that prompted a diplomatic fallout between Washington and Beijing as the American public tracked the balloon from Montana all the way to the Carolinas. President Joe Biden approved the downing of the balloon. Recovery efforts have begun after the balloon was downed. Well, incidentally, we have 2 professors of international relations. As both of you will know, this is right within the territory of the International Law of the Sea, 1958 Law of the Sea Convention. Article 87 says the seas is a res communis, common heritage of mankind. But the same law in Article 19 and Article 19.2 says even if it is common heritage of mankind, you cannot violate the territorial waters of a country, and you cannot at the same time use the territorial waters of a country for surveillance beyond 200 nautical miles, beyond 3,500 1,000 miles, nautical miles, as stated in the continental margin. Let me start with you, Professor Aworawo.
Well, it is interesting that even China admitted that it made a mistake, that the balloon wandered into American waters in error.
Convenient.
So the Chinese are also aware of, international law on all of this, the law of the seas and all. So they admitted that it was in error, but then they added that the balloon was only on climate issues, trying to gather information on the climate and all. The Americans disagree because they say the size of the balloon and the contents do not, are not in tandem with that claim. The Americans were hesitant a little bit. They had to down it eventually. It has, further exacerbated frosty relations between U.S. and China. Blinken was supposed to go to China. That has now been put in abeyance for some time. And what that means is that, a relation between both countries would, has suffered a setback, taking a turn for the worse on account of this balloon issue. Countries should be careful about provoking other countries. They should be more perceptive about these things. The world is already tensed. It doesn't need further tension at this time. Those are just my comments regarding the Chinese balloon.
Okay, we have just 2 minutes to go. Professor Akintola, you have a minute, and then Yemi will take the remaining minute.
If anybody argues that China does not know what it's trying to do, that individual must be very myopic. The issue is this. The United States government itself was compelled to bring the balloon down, especially when, Joe Biden is being presented and seen as being weak. The issue is that even if the balloon had not been seen in the airspace, the territorial space, which in itself in international law is a critical issue, where is the limit of the airspace? All right? What is the altitude? The Chinese said, well, they did not offend any territorial state, etc. along, even though they now came to accept. The critical issue is that the Americans will now be in a position to investigate, not just the contents, to see. The Chinese, by sending the balloon there, all these are intelligence gathering something. You call it balloon, all right? So I must know your strength to enable me prepare for my own strategic calculations. So it's mutual something. At the end of the day, it's not, strictly speaking, an issue of international law. Well, it's an issue of style, money,
your view on
power,
I'm
influence.
looking forward to the book that will be written in maybe 10 years that will talk about what happened in these 5 days. Because I think it took the U.S. longer than it should have to bring it down. But it'll be interesting to find out what the backstory on the discussions were.
Well, they needed to be sure that the Chinese came within their territorial waters.
I'm sure there's a little bit more than that.
Article 2 of the Law of the Sea Convention, 2.1 and 2.2, says that the territorial waters apply to the seabed, to the subsoil, and the airspace above it. So the Americans are in order.
So there's no altitude issue.
Nobody is contesting that.
Oh, okay.
No, you see, the issue is that already your territorial, your territory, either in terms of maritime, land, all those things, is a function of the altitude. Even right from the continental shelf, from your something down.
From the baseline.
From the baseline.
From the baseline to the shelf.
So you are correct.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. We've got to go. We've got to go. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.